I've been drifting about 6 months in total and have done, I want to say, about 10 to 15 events. And you often have people at events come up to you and ask if they can ride with you. And I've given, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 people rides at this point. And pretty much every single one of them has asked me how I got into it, how they can get into it, what kind of car I recommend they buy, the cost associated with it. And I tell every single one of them that my recommendation is for them to start on a sim racing setup at home. And every single one gives me that same look of disappointment, because that's not the cool answer. You know, the cool answer is go buy that old Miata, you know, throw some burner tires on it that you found behind a tire store that they were throwing out, and go hit the track. But, you know, realistically, drifting is expensive as shit, man. I mean, I think this summer I've got about $3,000 in tires that I've gone through. I mean, in addition, you know, you think about it, I bought this car, this is an HR 350Z, I bought this for $9K, and then put probably about $5 or $6,000 in various upgrades in it, between, you know, suspension, some brakes, you know, front angle kit. So if I had never drifted before and I took this car out and smacked it into a curb, I mean, I probably would have costed myself another $3,000 on top of that, right? I mean, it just bent control arms, wheels, so on and so forth. And that's why sim racing is great, because for the cost of that, you know, say $3,000 I spent on tires this summer, you can build a full sim rig, including a PC, and crash as many virtual cars and burn as many virtual tires as you want, you know, and then just press the fucking reset button at the end. Some insight of my experience with it. I mean, I've been doing sim racing in some form for probably 10 to 15 years, but I really started focusing on drifting in the last year or two, deciding that at some point that I wanted to buy an actual drift car. Eventually I got to the point on sim where I was just killing it, you know, and I didn't think there was that much more that I could gain from racing on sim. So I thought to myself, all right, this is the time to buy a car and see how much this really does translate. After flying down to Tampa to pick this car up, spending a few months putting it together, I took it to my first event. And at the time they had a figure 8 set up, so you can test your car on that or test out your skills on that before you got out on the real track. So I took it out in the figure 8 and, you know, was testing to kind of feel the difference between sim and real life. And there are some differences. I think the biggest difference is that everything on sim feels a little more loose. It's a lot easier to slide all 4 wheels on sim, where it requires a little more aggressive steering and throttle input. I feel like to do that in real life. But I spent maybe 2 or 3 minutes in that figure 8, you know, getting a feel for the car, you know, doing some really nice donuts before I decided, hey, it's time to go out on the track. And my first lap on the track, you know, I've got a video up of it now. It wasn't great. It was definitely me trying to get a feel for the braking points of the tires, including the hydro. And then by my third lap, which is this here, I was pretty much linking the whole course. And I had told one of the workers earlier in the day, this is my first time drifting, and they were like, there's no way this is your first time drifting. And that has continued to be the response from most of the, you know, folks that I've encountered that I've drifted with, is that they don't believe that I've only been drifting for 6 months. And I fully credit that to sim racing. I had gone out, I mean, my setup at home, and here it is a Thrustmaster T300, which of course is probably the worst name to have on the side of the rig if you're having a date over for the first time. If Thrustmaster doesn't create some unrealistic expectations, it's an awkward conversation to explain the name at the very least. I will continue to recommend this as a starting point for anyone looking to get into drifting for the first time. I mean, it translates so incredibly well. Even now that I've gotten into real drifting, I will still go back to practice in sim, because I realize that there are things that I can still learn there, you know, whether that be you know, how to push further out into a turn, you know, how to better hit clipping points, that kind of thing. And, you know, I can get hours upon hours of practice at home. Whereas if I go to a track for a couple hours, I've burned through at least a full set of tires for $300 or whatever that winds up being. So as disappointing as it will probably continue to be for people to hear, buy yourself a fucking sim racing setup before you buy yourself a real drift car. And that is why I said in the title, don't buy a drift car.